And we are back with CubeCon 2023 coverage. Justin Parnell and David McDarby. David, can you tell me what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, so I believe what we're looking at here is the prize for the Cheese Standalone tournament. It's a lot of cheese, Justin. I believe that is cheese.
Mounds and mounds, I believe, was your technical term.
Yes, multiple mounds have been sighted. We have a mound sighting here on the feature match area of, I'm not a numbers kind of guy, but I believe there's at least 8 different kinds of cheeses here featured.
I see cheeses. I see. It looks like maybe a jam in the middle.
Yeah.
Looks like there's some crackers on the bottom. And
for the cheese.
You can see them going all the way over to the end of Zach's playmat side on the left.
We have a cheese hat there, I believe. I think that's a hat.
It is a hat. You will be required to wear that as the winner as you are eating your cheese.
As you stand alone.
Yes, you will stand alone eating your cheese, as is the requirement. So, Zach is going to be going up against little-known player Reed Duke. Just kidding. Reed...
There's more accolades to go with him, surely.
There are. I don't have the list, but, we have... Reed is a Pro Tour champion, very recently, in fact. But he is, known for a certain archetype as well, which is...
Jund.
Jund.
Yes. So the opposite of blue-white, Jund. When in doubt, Jund him out.
And that's what Zach is going to try to do to Reed. So Reed probably going to be wise to his tricks.
Yeah, so we followed Zach Hill in the draft. He has a Jund deck, so a red, black, green deck with a bunch of 1-mana creatures that can advance his mana and his board state into some planeswalkers and some large creatures that do various amounts of things.
And it looks like our players are going to be getting started. They have their opening hands, and we're going to see exactly what they're going to be working with here. Reed going first on the play, starting with a forest and passing the turn. Zach doing the same thing, but has one of those 1-drops in Noble Hierarch right off the bat.
Yep, so Reed does not like to see that. Reed needs to counter with something. Looks like he'll be countering here with a Felwar Stone. So now he can add green to his mana pool. Hopefully that will be enough for the 2019 Hall of Famer.
And we have red now adding to that Felwar Stone with Zach, playing a 3-drop, and that is going to be Selvala. Zach is looking to do a significant amount of ramping early here, and Reed's going to check out Selvala to make sure, yes, if Reed plays a bigger creature, Reed's going to draw a card.
Yep, so Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, adds mana. Basically, you get 1 mana for the highest power. So, like, he'll add 2 mana because Selvala is a 2-powered creature. And then whenever a player plays a creature, if it has the greatest power, you draw a card. So it works for both sides. So here, if Reed plays a 3-powered creature, which he does in Doric. So Doric is from the Dungeons & Dragons movie, Doric Nature's Warden. You'll get a forest, rampant growth, basically a rampant growth for a forest. But it's any forest. So you can get a Triome, you can get a Taiga. And then Reed here, we saw Reed draw a card because at the highest power.
Right.
And that's really good. That's really powerful. So not only does Doric rampant growth these, she has vigilance. And when you attack, you can pay 2 mana. And if you do, she transforms into an owlbear. Yes, if you've played Dungeons & Dragons before, you're all familiar with what an owlbear is. It's a 6/6 vigilance trample. And when you attack your other legendary creatures, you get +2/+2 in trample. So it is, not only does it ramp you to mid-game in this cube, but it also is a threat that Zach will have to respect.
And Zach was taking a look at the owlbear, making sure that he familiarized himself with such a thing. And Reed was able to follow up not only with that, but getting looks like a Triome or a 3-color land of some type out of his deck. And then we see a Mawloc come down, X equals 2, X equals 3 because of Selvala.
Yes.
Thank you very much, which is enough to take out the Doric.
Yep, so this is kind of live the dream philosophy. Both players had some mana acceleration, and they played a threat of some sorts that can draw cards or deal more damage. Reed's played, it advances mana state. Zach Hill answered with a threat that's removal spell, took away that other threat. So we're kind of in the mid-range of game, and I believe here Reed Duke, along with Zach Hill, knows a thing or two about how to play mid-range games in Magic the Gathering.
Now, normally you need to play X equals 5 to draw a card with Mawloc, but thanks to Selvala, not the case here, as X equals 3 is going to get it done. Fight that creature, exile it, and draw a card, all for your trouble.
Yep, Selvala is applying the ravenousness needed to draw a card from the Mawloc.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the scary thing is not right now. It's actually when Zach untaps, because Selvala is going to be making 5 mana thanks to that Mawloc.
Yep. So Reed is here answering with a Llanowar Visionary. It's not only an Elvish Visionary and a Llanowar Elves, but it's combined to where Reed does draw a card. He only draws one card from him because there's a 5/5. So if Reed could play a 6-mana, 6-powered creature, he would also be drawing a card from the Selvala. But it's not looking great for Reed Duke right now. He needs something else to answer back, and he came out with a Mind Stone and then an Azorius Chancery. So now Reed has added white mana to his board. So with that Xander's Lounge, I believe he has access to all 5 colors.
And Reed really looks like, I don't want to say taking the turn off, but saying, I'm going to advance my board. Hopefully what you do on your turn isn't too devastating to me to make sure to handle
Yep.
that.
So Zach here has a lot of mana. So does Reed. Both players have a lot of mana. Right now, Zach is kind of in the driver's seat, but he has a decision to make as he is pondering his choices for the turn.
And we know that there was not... All right, we see the 4th land, and that's a swamp, giving Zach 2 forests, a mountain, a swamp, but with Selvala, essentially any color of mana.
Any color. So it's very representative of this cube that both players, it's turn 4, I believe, and both players could cast Wooburg. They could add Wooburg to the pool.
And to have access to upwards of 7 mana more in Zach's case.
Yes. Selvala is a powerful creature.
And this is a critical turn for Zach because this is, you're uninterrupted, Reed unlikely to be able to respond to anything that you are doing.
Yep.
So this is the time to play out one of your sledgehammers to change the dynamic of the game.
Zach has a few sledgehammers. He's got Paradox Zone, the 5-mana enchantment that just goes off. He has Grist the Hunter Tide, could be a removal spell for that Llanowar Visionary if Zach deems it so. He also has Mishra's Command, which could, again, be a removal spell for that Llanowar Visionary, and also maybe filter some of the dead cards from his hand out.
And we are going to see an activation of this Selvala. We're going to add 5 mana of any color, probably going to be, some combination of Jund.
Zach could here get 5 mana. Looks like he's 5 mana Paradox Zone, get that threat on the board, and then 3 mana Grist, and could just sacrifice that Noble Hierarch to destroy the Llanowar Visionary.
Yeah, I really like tapping a forest and a Selvala to put a very powerful enchantment onto the battlefield. That's pretty nice.
Yes, so Paradox Zone is a newer card from Strixhaven Commander. It enters the battlefield with the growth counter. And then on your instep, you double the growth counters.
Double them.
Then you make a fractal that's that big.
So we're looking at a 2/2. Then a 4/4.
Yes. Then an
8/8.
Then I don't know how 2 powers that high up.
16, and you've lived the dream officially.
16?
I think if you get to double digits.
32, 64?
If you get to double, yeah.
128? 256, 512,
okay,
1024?
Too much. Reed is conceded at this point.
Zoning too much. So Zach did cast a Mishra's Command to take down that Llanowar Visionary.
So pairing up a removal spell in the Mishra's Command with the Paradox Zone is going to really put a significant amount of pressure on Reed. And that's not to mention, that's an attack for 6 with the Noble Hierarch giving Exalted.
There are fractal tokens available in this cube. I know for sure. I got them yesterday. So we'll see if the players want to get the correct tokens for all you viewing, for your viewing pleasure there at home or wherever you may be.
And we'll see if Zach is able to get those. Checking out, Zach's like, maybe I could get these fractals, maybe not. We're going to see what Reed is cooking up. Needs to have a similarly big turn here to get back into the game. And thank you. We want to appreciate Corey, our coverage assistant, getting those tokens out that David worked so very hard to get.
So hard. They're, in fact, the only tokens that aren't sleeved because I didn't bring extra green sleeves for my green tokens. Wow. But anyway, I said the quiet part out loud. So Reed Duke here is trying to figure out what he's doing on this turn. He's facing up against Paradox Zone, something he probably hasn't done before. I do spot an Apex Devastator in his hand. So once Reed gets to 10 mana...
I have a question.
You have an answer.
Is that a reprieve in Reed's hand also?
No, that is a card recently from Bro Commander called Scholar of New Horizons.
All right, not quite reprieve.
Yep, that is Scholar of New Horizons lets you get a land from your deck to progress the mid-game. It also works very well with sagas in this cube.
Apex Devastator, it's odd. It's a 10-drop, but it only has 4 words in its text box.
Yeah, well, it's got a lot more words in the reminder text box.
It sure does, because the words are what?
Cascade.
And?
Cascade.
And then?
Cascade.
And finally?
Cascade.
Excellent. So Reed is really looking to get to that 10 mana to cast a single spell, but actually 5.
Yep, and he has 8 mana right now. So if he plays a Mana Accelerator this turn and a land next turn, he's there.
He's there. But will Zach let him hang around long enough to do it? And that is the question. I think Reed is going to need to put something together this turn to blunt the assault that Zach is going to be doing with this 2/2 fractal plus the Mawloc. And then we know there are more nasty monsters coming down the pipeline.
The night is dark and full of terrors. Reed Duke is going to be pondering his orb by casting the Palantir of Orthanc. So this is a card that there's a lot of words on it, but basically the short form is Reed can either draw a card a turn or mill X, where X is a turn has been in play, and deal damage to Zach equal to that number of the mana value of those milled cards. Sort of a cataclysm. The red Gear Hulk.
Cataclysmic Gear Hulk.
That's the white one.
Oh, you've tricked me now.
I'm a big tricker. Anyway, so Reed is going to be pondering his orb right now. He's scrying 2. So he can scry 2 and then mill 1 or draw a card, and it's Zach's decision.
Right. So commonly in the early time, people often will say, you can go ahead and mill and I'll take the damage. I'm willing to do it in a couple of turns. But then when you're looking at so many cards or milling so many cards, the decision is, maybe I'll let you start drawing now, because that number could get pretty big. All right, and what is the decision? What is the decision here?
So it looks like...
Did we have that? Do we have that plains milled?
Yep, that was the mill plane. So Reed put the planes... He kept both on top, I believe.
I think put both on the bottom.
Okay, put both on the bottom, and then you mill 1, so the planes is gone.
Plains is gone.
So Zach takes
says
0 damage.
0. Best number to take if I'm choosing how much damage I'll take.
Mm-hmm.
As I don't see a Death Shadow anywhere on Zach's board or in the cube.
That's correct. If you want to live that dream, you can play Modern or Pioneer.
Can you?
You can play Modern. I know that much.
So we know that Reed is definitely trying to get up to that 10 mana to play the Apex Devastator, but Reed is fully tapped out. So I think the goal here is to live.
The dream?
No. Unfortunately, the dream right now for Reed to live is literally live.
Yeah.
In the purest sense of the word. As fully tapped out, Zach has all of the agency right now, all of the mana, all of the creatures, all of the enchantments that make more creatures. So can we press the advantage enough if we're Zach to try to close this game out, or are we going to leave the door open just enough for Reed to try to jump back in and get closer to that Apex Devastator?
Yep, so Reed's at 8 mana right now, so on his turn, if he has a land, he can get to 9. That's not quite 10. And I don't believe there is a way to jump up 2 mana on the same turn you'd want to use that mana. There are not a lot of fast ritual, fast mana effects, but Zach is playing Escape the Wilds.
To the Wilds.
So he's going to kind of draw 5 cards, but able to play 2 cards this turn, and he does have a Grist in the hand too.
Right, so we're going to exile 5. We've exiled 1. We're going to exile 2, 3, 4, 5. And this will be fun because we'll all be surprised together what these cards are.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this also lets you play an additional land this turn, which Zach's going to do with a Gruul Turf.
Bounce that tap land, then play the land. So he has 4 spells that have escaped the wilds.
Wow.
I'm sure they're good ones because Zach drafted them.
Well, I saw a braid.
A braid?
I also saw Duretti.
Spaghetti.
Yes. Those are the only 2 I saw, but those are quite powerful ones. Oof. A braid and Duretti on this board, both of which can destroy artifacts. That could potentially set Reed back to the Stone Age when he's trying to get up to even more mana that he's starting with right now.
Yeah, Reed definitely did not want to see that. So Zach right now, in chess terms, he's ahead of material. He just wants to 1v1 as much as he can so he can get to that end game. So seeing Duretti and a braid lets him get rid of both those mana-creating artifacts. Reed can have his Pondering, Seeing Stone. That's fine. It's not going to pose a threat right now. He's going to get rid of it with...
Zach thinks otherwise.
Zach thinks otherwise? So you don't know exactly what Reed might get from the Palantir. Zach is also probably not assuming the Reed has a 10-mana spell in his hand.
Right, and we're going to come in for 7, having Reed's life total, putting lethal threats on the board, and we're going to see if this pays off. I don't know if Zach's done casting spells. Mm-hmm. We certainly have a Grist that could come down, but are we going to play something from Exile instead, or are we going to see this Grist? Survey says Grist.
Grist, the Hunger Tide. It used to be a creature, but now it's a planeswalker.
Yeah, moments ago it was a creature, and then it resolved.
Yeah, I believe Zach attacked for 9 that turn, which is not going to really matter in the long run. So I believe Reed is at 5. He milled an Inferno Titan, which turns out not an insect.
It is not. I believe it was 7. We have a 5/5 Moloch and a 2/2 Fractal.
Okay, 7, yep. And Selvala tapped for mana.
It did.
Selvala's good at that.
Selvala's good at a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so Zach has a Grist, and as Insect is on the way.
Insect's on the way, as is the Fractal.
How big is this Fractal?
It'd be a 4/4.
Is that 2 times 2?
By my math, it sure is.
By your math, well, by my reckoning, that's good enough for me. So we're going to see what Reed draws for his turn. Helps. Yeah. The new fractal is even bigger. Reed has a forest coming off pretty quickly with 6 mana into. This card was foretold.
Oh.
The foretold card got away from us, and it's Alrund's Epiphany with a loot tree from the hand. So Reed is not only taking an extra turn, he's taking 2 extra turns and making 4 1/1 flying bird creature tokens.
This is a dream to live, absolutely, taking 2 extra turns. And you know what? This is the exact type of thing that Reed needed to turn this game around. And, of course, Zach, not prepared for a significant amount of creatures paired with a couple of extra turns. So
okay, so the game has changed now. With that foretold time stretch with 4 birds, like a full-off Lingering Souls, if you will, with exactly 9 mana. Reed had exactly the right amount of mana to loot tree that Alrund's Epiphany.
unbelievable.
So now,
It's like he set it up.
like I said, so now Reed drew a dual land because there's a white border. So that will give him 10 whole mana for this Apex Devastator. And then, Justin, the dreams will really begin to live, and I'm so excited.
Well, the nightmares might be starting for Zach as soon as he sees the spell go onto the stack.
Oh,
And
it was not a land. It was an Elish Norn. That's all right.
you've been tricked. You've tricked yourself.
That's okay. You know what? Reed's got turns to spare.
Reed has at least one more turn, and
Yeah.
we're in the first of 2 additional turns, and we are going to see Elish Norn Grand Cenobite.
Yep. So where once he had 4 power in the air, now he has 12. And he has 2 extra turns.
And maybe a 5 extra on the
Yep.
ground. And Zach says, despite me leading for the entire game, Reed is going to take it in 2 swift motions.
Yep. So we see there, Reed Duke has been replaced by Elish Norn, the Grand Cenobite. So that was a great example of the Live the Dream cube. Both players had back and forth in the mid game. They were making more mana, making threats, casting planeswalkers and enchantments and artifacts, all these kinds of things. One player, Zach, looked like such a head. He had such a dominant board state. Fully. He had tons more mana, more cards. He just everything. Reed had a couple of mana rocks and 8 mana. What's the worst that could happen?
I'll tell you, actually, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, directly after you play 2 additional turns, only one of which Reed needed.
That's
We
true.
didn't even need the second one. In fact, the other Alrund's Epiphany simply supplied 2 birds,
2 birds.
and that was sufficient.
2 birds, 1 Norn. Sometimes that's all you need.
Is there something that you would do if you're Zach? Is there something that you are changing to make sure? I imagine if that Hurl Through Hell did not make the main deck, it's coming in now.
It's coming now. So clearly Zach is the beatdown in this matchup,
Right.
and Reed is the control. So Zach may be looking for less creature removal because Doomblades may not be so good because Reed didn't really play a lot of creatures that you want to kill. They kind of do their thing.
Right.
He did play Elish Norn, but if you're playing Doomblade against Elish Norn, I don't know if that's the kind of the game you want to be playing.
Well, Zach killed all of the creatures until he passed his last turn.
That's true. And then Reed just had a time stretch.
And then they jumped up. So I have another question for you. How do you feel about cube content?
I'm a big fan of cube content. Could you tell me some people who might be providing this cube content?
Well, do you want more cube content than you have right now?
Well, I'm living and breathing, so yes, I do.
Great. Do you want to see interviews with your favorite cube drafting personalities?
That would be some of the greatest content I'd want to watch.
Well, that is good because if you also want to watch that, you can go and check out Cubeheads, a cube drafting channel focused on bringing you the personalities and experiences in the cube scene. You can visit them at youtube.com/@Cubeheads. That's youtube.com/@Cubeheads, which is one of our mythic sponsors for the weekend.
Yeah, I've talked to some of the cube heads at Cubeheads, and they're really lovely people. They have some really cool merchandise, like the logo that you see here right there. They've got it on stickers, and they're making cube accessories and stuff with their brand and stuff. And they're really fun people to cube with. I have in fact cubed with them before.
That's right. And
Yep.
let me see if I can. Okay, it's right. Boom. There they are, cube heads. Their little head. It's adorable.
It's a cube.
And it's a cube.
It's a cube.
It's all we could ever want.
They're really good at naming things.
Excellent.
And making cube content.
That's right. And I've enjoyed it. And you know what? I know that Steve, who runs Cubeheads, is making a lot of content here at CubeCon. So this is the best time to go and subscribe to that YouTube channel because you're going to get a ton of Cube content coming out of this event. And make sure you ring the bell. That's not even on the ad. I just know you need to do that to make sure you get the content coming right to you.
Right to you. So here on the broadcast, you see two cubes today, 3 tomorrow, 3 the next day, then 2 the final day. There's more than those 10 cubes here.
So many more.
And a great way to see some of them and see some of the Cube content is with CubeHeads. So like they give you another viewpoint into CubeCon.
Because you know what? There's not ever enough of. That's Cube content.
Cube content. I was going with cheese.
No, cheese too. Cheese too. It's tough. You know, there are two things I can't live without.
Okay,
I haven't tried to live without either, so I'm scared to start now.
Okay, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right here at the base, you've got cheese,
cube,
and also Jonathan Brostoff.
And Jonathan Brostoff, who thank you, is providing the additional CubeCon energy that we need as we are heading into Game 2 that we'll be going to in just a moment. And I know that those Zach and Reed, they're competitive, right?
They've known to enter a competitive tournament or two.
They have known to enter a competitive tournament too. And just because we're just playing for charcuterie board and a bunch of cheese doesn't mean that they're not putting their foot fully on the pedal.
No,
you can push on this.
You can never truly get rid of the fire to do your best at the thing you've dedicated a lot of your life to. Honestly, you spend a lot of your time learning how to play Magic, and here at CubeCon, we're getting right back into it with Zach, again opening with a Noble Hierarch turn 1, and Reed, instead of a Forest, a Xander's Lounge.
Absolutely. We see a rare attack with that Noble Hierarch. Gotta get in for one. Gotta let you know. I didn't do this last time, but you know what? We're getting in early. I am the beatdown, and we see the Felwar Stone again come out, Reed answering with ramp of his own.
Yep, second verse, same as the first. And Zach, the beatdowns continue with an attack on turn 3.
As we do not have a 4-drop, but we have a 2-drop, and this is going to be
the Biophagus. Yes, so this is a 1/3 for 2 that adds another mana, but that creature is a +1/+1/+1 counter. So next turn, Zach could have access to 6 mana.
Very likely.
Yeah, so Inferno Titan could be coming down.
A big, extra big 7/7. That beats all the other Titans in combat.
It sure does. And Reed would be at probably 15 then. The race is on. So here we have a restoration
of a Ganjo.
So this is a rare white card that lets you ramp, that gets you ahead on the curve of mana, which is why it's in here.
Yeah, you're going to search for a land, have a chance to discard a card to return something that costs 2 mana value or less, including that land you just found. And Reed is going to play a bounce land to put more of those into his hand. So I think we're probably going to see some white ramping in the next turn.
Yep, so both players have their rampant growths as their companions here going on. Reed does have Lutri as a companion. You can see it up there, which is a fairly common companion in this cube. It's not that difficult to meet that companion criteria.
I would say wildly easy.
Wildly easy, yes. And the Biophagus comes in for 2.
For 2.
Yep. And here we have for 5 mana, Zach will be deploying a Paradox Zone is back again.
Right.
It looked pretty imposing last game. It didn't quite get there. We'll see if the Frax can meet the truths here.
Fortunately for Zach, Reed is a lot farther away from pulling off the Alrund's Epiphany Lutri combination that he did last game. And looks like we have a Temple Garden coming down for Reed out of his graveyard, as it's what he discarded to the Restoration of Aganjo's Chapter 2.
So if I'm Zach, I'm feeling decently well because we know Reed has a Plains and a Forest in his hand.
Right.
So he's got a few lands in his hand, but also he has probably 5 other cards that may not be lands. So we'll see. But the onus is on Reed to do something about this Paradox Zone, because this Paradox Zone does not say the game keep going. And Reed answers with its own 5-mana enchantment in the form of Mirari's Wake.
Mirari's Wake, really exceptional at being cast and then untapping and letting you cast Apex Devastator.
That's
one of its
correct.
Specialties, actually.
That's one of its known qualities here in the Live the Dream Cube. So next turn, Reed will have access to, I don't know, 12 mana, something like that.
I don't know if you caught Zach's expression on the cast of the Mirari's Wake, but he does not seem like he is going to be prepared to answer that as he attacks for 3 with this Fractal, having exalted from Noble Hierarch.
Yep, so we have the dichotomy of green here. Do you make a lot of mana or do you make a lot of dudes? And so we have here A versus B. Who's going to reign supreme? But Zach is going to help out all these Fractal tokens with the aforementioned Inferno Titan. Just 3 to the dome, lightning chain, lava spike you, Reed. And then I'll make a 4/4. You're up.
And we're going to +1/+1 counter on that Inferno Titan, too. So that's a 7/7. We are putting a lot of pressure on.
So it's
Reed's at 10. But, man, I don't feel comfortable yet to call this for Zach.
Yeah,
we did that last time, and we were wildly wrong.
Yeah, we're turn 5 now, and Reed has access to 10 mana right now. Apex Devastator could be around. If it is around, I would imagine that's the spell that Reed would want to cast the most. Well, I mean, he has other plans for his mana-rich turn.
And we're trying to take a look, as you all are, at what could possibly be in Reed's hand. And I would imagine there's not an Apex Devastator because it looks like Reed is separating his mana to potentially cast a couple of spells that maybe add up to 10 but aren't on 10 on their own.
Yeah. We're doing the math. I would imagine Reed is not used to having to count this much mana on turn 5 in a game of Magic.
Right. One of the most discomforting feelings when I'm playing Magic is when someone starts to count their mana with their fingers.
Yes, especially when they have a Mirari's Wake out.
You know things are about to go very poorly for you when people are starting to count with their fingers.
Yep.
So
here we have Eladamri's Call. Reed can find any creature in his deck. We got a few options. We have Elish Norn.
Titan of Industry.
Titan of Industry is a big one. Can get rid of that Paradox Zone.
Trostani Discordant. But we are going to get the Apex Devastator to let Zach know, and Zach's response is, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Yep.
Now, I believe Zach is going to get a turn to live.
To prepare.
Unless we are counting wrong. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, this is 10. This is happening now.
Is it 10?
Because of the Felwar Stone.
All right.
This is happening. So, Reed very oh my gosh. So the first one, and Zach is just laughing at the ridiculousness. So the first one is Orange Epiphany.
Scholar of New Horizons.
Scholar of New Horizons.
A little worse than a 7-mana Time Walk.
Barely.
We've counted number 3, Skyclave Relic.
Skyclave Relic.
You can kick it if you'd like to, if you have the mana read.
You can't. All right.
And then here we are, the fourth one. Prismatic
Lens. Going to draw Reed a card, but not going to advance the board. But you know what? We're taking an extra turn. We made a 10-10, and we drew a card.
That ain't bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
Well, I don't know if Zach agrees, but he was certainly excited to see Reed do it, as Reed's going to go into his extra turn here with a 10-10, 2 extra birds, and a bucket of extra mana. And the Scholar. I don't want. And you know what? It's not a 10-10. It's an 11-11 and 2/2s thanks to Mirari's Wake, because I don't want to forget that it gives your team +1/+1 as well.
That's the white portion of the green-white card.
Yes.
They're both evenly balanced.
They're definitely evenly balanced. We're gonna see Reed here utilize both parts in this game. You're gonna use every part of the Buffalo to try to put Zach away. Reed's 10 life. That's 10 more than I needed to be dead here. So
he's got 9 life to work with, and doing up the math. So Inferno Titan does do a lot of damage. So Reed has to make sure in his bountiful land of magical Christmas land 30 mana, he still survives this Inferno Titan, which means does this Apex Devastator attack and get chump blocked by the Noble Hierarch? Because it has 4 words on it, but they're not trampled.
They're not trample, or trample. They're cascade a lot. But Reed's saying, I'll take. How about another 10 mana? How about another 10 mana? What's going to come of this?
Yep.
And this is a Hydroid Crisis X equals 8. So that's going to buoy Reed's life total and put in a 10-10 flyer. And I guess that means Reed's going to draw 5 and gain 5.
Draw 5, gain 5. 12 mana.
I think this attack with the Apex Devastator is looking a lot more palatable right now. Now that you've put a giant Flample Beast Jellyfish Hydra, I believe.
I believe you are correct.
Excellent. On to the board. So we're going to see some action into the red zone just with the birds, or are we going to see the Devastator work its magic as well?
Well, don't forget the Beast Jellyfish. What would you say?
Beast Jellyfish Hydra.
It's an 11-11. So here comes the Aganjo Restoration Transformed side,
which is going to put another 1/1 spirit onto the battlefield. It doesn't have flying.
They're colorless.
They're colorless, in fact. But you know what? We'll see if that ends up making a dramatic difference in this game. Reed's going to keep his birds back, though, saying, you know what?
Inferno Titan,
I feel pretty safe.
Inferno Titan can't take them both out. They're 2/2s.
Can't take them both out. They're 2/2s.
Mirari's Wake still providing. So the Inferno Titan will block the Aganjo Spirit and go down. But now Reed has another flyer.
And Reed's not done casting spells. This was the appetizer. The main course is the Garruk Relentless, which is going to fight using its 0 ability to deal 3 damage to Inferno Titan which conveniently had 4 damage on it. Screen's going to go to the graveyard, and Zach is going to be in not happy land.
Dire Straits. Well, when your opponent casts an Apex Devastator into a Time Walk and then draws 5 cards with a Hydroid Crisis, yeah, you're going to have to start reaching real deep in your bag of tricks.
We're going to really need to see some tricks here from Zach.
So Zach does have a Hurl Through Hell, I believe, in his hand, which can hurl one thing through hell, but Reed's got a lot of things that need to be hurled.
Yeah, I think to win, Zach is going to need to hurl Reed himself through hell to pick up this victory.
Sadly, Hurl Through Hell only targets creatures. If it could target planeswalkers like Dreadbore, like the players are, maybe we'd be talking about just creatures.
Yeah, not quite. And Zach going to take a damage on this Prismatic Vista. Normally not that big of a deal, but
it is
a little tougher here.
I mean, when your opponent has Mirari's Wake, every damage counts.
It absolutely does. And the first order of business is not all of these little creatures and the things on the ground, but it's that Hydroid Crisis, which has got flying and trample.
Yeah, I mean, Paradox Zone is putting up a fight, but it might prove to be too slow. So the Hydroid Crisis will be hurled through hell.
All the way through.
Just all the way through. So there you can see it. It's exiled, and then until the end of Zach's next turn, he can cast a Flampleur of his very own.
Now, I don't know if that's going to be in the game plan.
I mean, it might be. You can't use mana of any color, so Zach's going to be taking the Spirit. There we have a ground Spirit, Boonray Spirit of choice.
Excellent.
Yep, and Zach can't block any of the flyers that Reed has, so there's 4 damage for sure coming through. But on the ground, he's decently able to chump a couple creatures or flat out block them in the case of Scholar of New Horizons.
And it's a quick 2-turn clock with those birds. So Zach is going to be deploying the last card from his hand, which looks to be...
Red Cap Gutter Dweller.
Gutter Dweller.
Yeah, so this one will make some rats. So again, the ground will be protected. The rats can't block, but the rats can be sacrificed in order to cast the top card off your library. You do have to pay the mana cost for it.
You do.
Sad to say.
Yeah.
The rate isn't quite that strong on this, but it is a threat of some sort that does give Zach some card advantage. And he does need to be looking for something to survive this onslaught that he's providing thanks to Mirari's Wake into Apex Devastator.
And it looks like, so Zach is going to have a shot at essentially 3 cards, even though he has no cards in hands this turn, drawing card first turn, probably sacrificing one of those rats, and then has access to that Hydroid Crisis till the end of his next turn.
Yeah, I imagine Zach is going to be next turn pumping as much mana through that Crisis, all she's got, and then seeing what conspires from that. Reed, meanwhile, has a full grip of 7 cards or something like that. There's a bunch of mana sources in his hand, but I'm sure there's still things he can do.
And Zach really needs to concentrate on simply making it to his next turn.
Just surviving.
That is, we're talking about what's going to happen on Zach's next turn. That's a reality that could never come to fruition if Reed has his way. And Reed does have a lot of lands.
Yep, he also has a loot tree he just picked up from his sideboard.
Well, never comforting.
Never comforting. Yeah, not what you want to see when your opponent has 15 mana. So the Reed is coming in with the Devastator and the Bird tokens. So birds will fly over for 4 damage no matter what. And yep, the smallest of the fractals will jump in the way of this quadruple Cascader.
Yeah, baby fractal. You lived a good life. You got 2 damage in, maybe.
It did have the longest life of all the fractals.
It did.
So I don't know if it's the baby fractal. Maybe it's the grandparent fractal.
That's true.
Yeah.
And every
fracked
lineage
the most.
of fractal just gets more and more powerful, which is exactly what it would want.
Yep.
Reed still has not yet deployed anything but looking to cast his first spell for the turn, which, if it's anything like the last couple of turns, is probably going to put Zach even farther on the back foot with an Asika's Chariot.
Yep. So there'll be some cats joining the fray.
3/3 cats, in fact.
Well, those are some large, almost big enough to cruise on their own.
Yeah.
And here we have Dork yet again, so she's going to be pulling up another forest. It could be any kind of forest.
We're going to go to the basic forest,
Yeah.
says Reed.
But Sophie Lillis is here to aid Reed Duke in his adventure to defeat Zach Hill here in the Cheese Stands Alone tournament.
And it's going to be, at this point, a major upset if we even see Zach, certainly not even win, but even escape this game.
Yeah, and here we're doing some combat math of how much power Zach has. So, can Zach play a Hydroid Crisis with X equals as much mana as he has and then survive? Can he even do that? Or does he have to go really deep into the math tank and be like, Hydroid Krasis leaving, 3 mana open, so if I draw a land and a removal spell, I can survive. And that's kind of the game plan we're in right now.
Well, here comes the Sacrifice, getting rid of one of those rats, exiling the top card, which we're not quite sure what it is, but Zach is going to take a draw and still have access to that Hydroid Krasis as well.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget the forest. The rat turned into a forest. That's okay. Rats are everywhere, even in forest.
That's true,
And
especially in forest.
Especially in forest. And looks like Zach drew Master of the Wild Hunt, a powerful, mythic, rare card. Just
maybe not what you want here.
Maybe not what you want here.
This is looking a lot like a Hydroid Krasis.
Yep.
Currently, X is going to equal 5. Are we going to get it to 6 with the Biophagus or the Noble Hierarch? And Zach says, I'm thinking about it.
He's in the tank.
You got to get those. You got to get to those even numbers with Hydroid Krasis if you want to jump up on a card or a life.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do cast it for odd, and you just have a little more power and toughness for your Krasis, but it's not where you want to be.
Not where you want to be.
Yep, so here comes the Krasis. It is large, not quite as large as when Reed cast it. Oh, yep, it's only for X equals 6, so Zach will draw 3 cards and gain 3 life. And we'll see if those cards and that life can sustain him through Reed's colossal onslaught of green and blue creatures.
I mean, it's definitely important. This is also just a blocker for one of those birds, which at this point in the game is critical.
Yeah, you'll take what you can get if you're Zach, and we'll see if it's enough.
And it's going to be extra critical because I would imagine that Asika's Chariot's probably going to come to town and make another bird.
Yeah, I would probably select a bird as well because it has wings.
Yeah, it's got wings. Wings are important, especially when they're 2/2s. They start making a pretty big difference.
And Mirari's Wake, people look at like big mana crazy cubes like green white just like makes creatures. Well,
Reed has an instant, which is going to be a unexpectedly absent X equals 1. Going to put anything on the bottom on 1 down from Zach, and Reed's going to take it 2-0 in the first round of the Cheese Stands Alone. 1 step closer to the beautiful charcuterie board, which you guys couldn't even see because it was so filled with cheese.
Yeah, so Reed put that spell just beneath one card, and those wonderful cheese mounds are just offside the camera.
That's right.
With the succulent smells and visuals of the cheese presentation in the cheese capital of at least the United States, here where we are at CubeCon. The world.
The world.
I would say the world.
As far as Google, an extensive Google search showed me the most cheese produced here in Wisconsin. Yeah, unexpectedly absent. Put the card 1 further down, but took Reed 1 step closer to the cheese.
That's right. So that was the first round of the Live the Dream Cube. The first cube featured here at CubeCon. There are 49 other featured cubes that will be bringing you 9 others throughout the weekend. But we've got more Live the Dream content to come.
We absolutely do. We have 6 other competitors that are vying for this cheese.
The cheese.
And we're going to take a look at another 2 of those competitors potentially in the next round. We want to get some fresh faces. Mm-hmm. Reed's probably going to be hanging around. Reed's deck looks pretty powerful.
If Reed's past is any inclination, he'll probably be around playing Magic for a while this weekend. Probably at the top tables if there were top tables. But we don't really do that here at CubeCon.
No. We've numbered the tables.
Well, that's true. You do need some placards to know where to sit for the organization. Right. But there are so many different cubes being played starting tomorrow with the main event. But for today, there's just open cubing as far as I can see.
Almost every table is full.
Yeah. We're going to have to find some space.
All right. So we are going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Don't miss anything. CubeCon 2023, Justin Parnell, Dave McDarby will be back in just a moment.